Okay, welcome back to COM 330. We are looking at physical and technological intrusion, one of the four privacy torts. And technological intrusion is invasion of a person's solitude by technical or other means. Now, exactly how that happens is up for debate. One of the things we want to talk about, however, that's important to this is the public sphere. Um, Privacy is not an expectation in public spaces. Um, People can take pictures and videos. If you are in the park and somebody is videoing or taking pictures, legally they are allowed to do that. And legally you don't need to ask. Somebody might say, well, you can't take a picture of that. That's my house. Actually, legally, if you are in public, on the public street, you can actually do that now. You want to be a good neighbor. You might ask their permission ahead of time to do that, and certainly you don't want to just do things to be a troll. But if there's news value, if it's seen from a public place, you can do that. And once again, the key is whether it is visible in from a public place. If you're on the street and something is visible, you can certainly take that picture. One of the other things about that, we're talking about public spaces, is that the internet is largely considered a public sphere. And so the privacy expectation on the internet is not as high as many people actually think. Let's look at the second privacy tort, which is false light invasion of privacy. It's the one defense on that is that if it's a matter of public concern, if it's there's newsworthiness to it, it usually will get the benefit of the doubt. Also, a second factor of that to win a privacy tort, false light and invasion of privacy, you need to have actual malice shown, which is a higher degree of proof. Two areas of concern in false light are the first is fictionalization, and this is embellishing the truth. It's untrue sensationalism. So it takes on the character of being untrue. And so you may tell a story and it contains something that is untrue. The second is distortion. And distortion is making something seem different from the truth. Now, this in some cases falls into false headlines. I read a lot of newspapers, and some of those newspapers have the habit of saying something, and you read the headline or you read the article, and it's nothing like what the headline was. And so, in some cases, that can be an invasion of privacy. If somebody says something and words it in such a way as people get a false impression of you, that can be a false light privacy tort. Let's go on to number 4, the last one of these, which is commercialization. And one of the words used in commercialization is appropriation. And this is using another person's name, their voice, or likeness for commercial gain. Now, every once in a while, I see somebody who has a picture of a famous celebrity, and I think, I'm pretty sure that this small business didn't get that celebrity endorsement, and maybe nobody is paying attention, so it slips by. Larger company is not going to do that, but appropriation is a concern. So you don't want to use somebody's likeness and commercially gain on it, and risk a lawsuit with that. Now, for instance, can you use Elvis Presley's likeness? Question would be, can you use that likeness? Even though he is dead, his estate actually still has, he still controls his likeness. So if you do that, if you use or if you use one of their songs, his estate has been in the past litigious and pursued that. And they have, because his likeness has value, and they can make money from that. Which takes us to the next point, which is a likeness has value. So somebody who has worked a long time to be a spokesperson or whose face is sought after as a sponsor, that has value. And so somebody who is using that, the law considers it taking value from that person. Now, this is not talking about news value or anything like that. This is talking about when you're talking about commercials, when you're talking about advertising, using somebody's picture to sell something when that might dilute their likeness. So let's look at two examples. The first is a case with Wheel of Fortune's Vanna White. She sued Samsung for using her likeness in an ad. Now, the outcome of this, I still, every time I talk about it, find it surprising. But Samsung had shown had an ad that showed a robot, and the robot looked like Vanna White and was turning letters. It had the same hair and a dress, and if you look at when you look at the notes, there's a picture of that, and it's quite far away from her likeness. But the court said it actually was meant to be her. It was obvious they were trying to do that. It was not satire. They were trying to gain from using her likeness. Vanna White won that case, even though the likeness was a robot. So that gives an example of how easily somebody can sue for a likeness. The second example was the movie The Perfect Storm. And it was a number of years ago, but it was a story about, I believe the ship was the Andrea Gale, and The Perfect Storm was three different storms that came together, and it was a terrible storm, and the Andrea Gale was in it, and it was a true story, based on a true story. And there had been a book that came out, and the movie then came out, and I can't remember all the people, but there were pretty big stars in it. And it wasn't great acting, but it sold very well at the box office. So the family members of the people who actually lost their lives in this boat, when the movie came out in 2000, they sued, and they said using their relatives' names, because they used their real names in the movie, was commercial appropriation. The movie, they said, was making money, and it made millions of dollars off of their deceased relatives' names. And the court disagreed. The court said it was not for a product, so it was not appropriation. Some would say, well, the movie is a product. They're selling a product and making money off of it. But the Supreme Court said, or rather the court said at that time, it was not for a product, and that the media is not considered a product. Now that's that's why we're talking about here. That's an interesting interpretation and a good thing to remember. But this is one reason why the paparazzi and tabloids can make money off celebrity images and talk about them. And sometimes I've seen clips of celebrities complaining and say they're making millions of dollars off of our images. And the reason for that is that these are not considered products. Even the scandal sheets, the Daily Mail, and some of these newspapers, not considered a product, and which is why the paparazzi basically exists. Now, that certainly can be argued that sometimes the paparazzi are very invasive, and I have some pictures in the notes about that. But the court said in the Perfect Storm case that the media is not a product. And we will end discussing privacy there.